Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and it's not Spawn here. It's day 74 of my comic review video day calendar. Today, we're going to take a look at a classic. This one's really neat. This is Best of Brave and the Bold #1, featuring Batman and Green Arrow. The way I have this printed is the beginning of a 6-issue miniseries that reprints classic stories from Brave and the Bold. So this comes out in 1988, but this original story was printed in 79. This has a really cool wraparound cover. I really like the presentation with this, and I had not read this before. This is significant because it is the first appearance of this classic Green Arrow costume. This was Neal Adams reinventing the look of this character, and this is, by the way, some of the best Neal Adams art I've ever seen. He is in rare form with this story. It looks really cool, and the panel layouts are spectacular, and a lot of really cool dynamic action. I can't wait to show it to you. I am cheating a little bit with this title because I'm trying to do a different Batman title every day for the month of Bat March, and I'm behind again, by the way. For those of you keeping score, I'm 2 days behind right now. I'm going to have another one out later today, hopefully, and then I'll still have to play catch-up after that. This weekend is going to be difficult because of counting Crypto Freaks, but I will catch up. Anyway, but I'm cheating a little bit because this is a reprint, but so I've already done a Brave and the Bold this month, but this is Best of Brave and the Bold, so technically I'm getting away with it, I think. So like I said, the original story comes out in 1979. This is, and it's just your standard 22 pages, so this is an oversized comic, but it has some reprints in the back. So it has the original Brave and the Bold #1 before Batman was in the book, of course, with a character called Viking Prince. None of this was real popular and stuck around, but here they are. This is some fantasy stuff. We got Golden Gladiator. And I'm not going to review these. I just wanted to show you what else was in this book in case you're curious. And we also have Silent Knight, who I think I had heard of, but didn't know anything about and what he looked like. But anyway, there's that. So once again, drawn by Neal Adams and written by Bob Haney, and this is our second encounter with Mr. Haney. I think it was a Brave and the Bold that I reviewed earlier in the month that he did, and I talked about him a little bit. He co-created Teen Titans, and he was really well known for not giving a crap about continuity, for writing characters kind of out of character, giving them just his own kind of classic golden or silver age sort of voice. He starts in comics back in the 40s, and he really keeps, I want to say, at least a 60s sensibility, if not a little bit earlier, all the way through. And I think he sometimes drove people crazy in blatantly contradicting other events that had happened with characters that he was writing on. And I don't want to throw too much shade at him because I like this story and I like the way it's written, but it does feel a little bit at odds with the premise. It's strangely anachronistic, and it's kind of a fun juxtaposition, I guess. Like, there's sort of two ways to read this. Like, one is it feels real held back, where it's a political story that is written very escapist and not politically driven and not really interested in the politics so much as just using that as a backdrop for character drama. So again, this is a real classic, almost Shakespearean-esque kind of drama about mistaken identities, right? But it's in a period where DC is starting to do a lot more social commentary about specific heavy things that were happening in the culture right then. And I always talk about Denny O'Neil, but like 1979, he's already starting to do that with Green Arrow. And so it's also weird because it's with this character who's already starting to get a reputation for going to places that comics had been kind of, afraid to tread before with social issues. And so he's kind of a liberal crusader for social issues, making comics a little bit more, if not crusading about that, because I don't think that stuff reads as like horribly agenda driven and propaganda or anything, but just finally talking about those things, making them more than just a backdrop, getting into some real meaty, juicy commentary. These things are happening. We should at least acknowledge them, maybe in our comics. And then when you get into the 80s, you start getting a lot of that with guys like Alan Moore, with Watchmen and Doom Patrol and all kinds of other things. And they're not, or Doom Patrol, Morrison even is doing arguably some of that, talking about urban upheaval and all kinds of stuff that would maybe be paid lip service to. You'd maybe be getting art that would remind you these things are going on, but the comics seem to be afraid to tackle them too much. And this issue is not really saying too much about the politics itself. Like, we're not getting into the details of, for instance, the crime bill that's in this story, and we don't have any partisan politics. We don't really know who is on what side, except if you've been reading Green Arrow, you know that he's a liberal guy. But I don't know what Batman's politics are. It kind of doesn't matter. And on the one hand, that's kind of refreshing, I suppose, but on the other, it's kind of odd that it's just, again, the politics are played just for kind of like standard intrigue, and we're not really getting into the nitty-gritty of what any of that is about. It's just kind of strange in this particular period. So let me break down. Oh, first of all, let's look at this art for a second, because like I said, it's spectacular. Neal Adams has characters jumping right out of panels, and I don't know how much that was his MO. I think he was already doing some of that, but like I said, it feels like he's kind of in rare form here. It's just really dynamic. I like the way that more kinetic energy is created between panels when you've got characters that are jumping right out of them into other panels. It just kind of naturally helps you fill in the action in between, like you're looking at a movie, and it's not just cinematic storyboarding, but you kind of forget that you're reading a comic book, and it feels like you can actually see those things moving. Your imagination does all that work because Neal Adams is doing a little bit more of that work for you. And it's hard to imagine that Todd McFarlane isn't looking at, maybe not specifically this issue with his art, but Neal Adams in general, because I'm reminded of, and yeah, I'm going back to Spawn again, but I'm reminded of a lot of his hallmarks when I'm looking at this Neal Adams stuff, where he's just breaking a lot of rules, or at least what would be considered the rules of modern conventions right then. McFarlane complains even in the 80s that DC really wanted, and Marvel both really, I guess Marvel more than DC, that when he was doing Spider-Man, that you were supposed to have really kind of boring panel layouts, and that you couldn't have characters kind of breaking the fourth wall and popping out of a panel. And he's like, why? How come? Why can't I do that? And he never got a straight answer. It was just, we don't do that here. And I know that McFarlane, and I don't mean to talk about him too much here, but I know that McFarlane always said that he wasn't really inspired by good art so much as by bad art in what not to do. So he would look at things that he thought were crappy looking or boring, and he'd say, okay, I don't want to do that, and then he would, make up his own style. So the question is, was he actually looking at guys like Neal Adams, or, and obviously I'm sure he looked at a lot of other art, but like, was he very inspired by this stuff, or did he and Neal Adams get to some of the same places for some of the same reasons? And obviously, I don't mean to say that McFarlane and Neal Adams' art look that similar, because Neal Adams very famously was bringing a more realistic sensibility to comics in particularly faces that we hadn't really seen before, and McFarlane is much more exaggerated, much more heightened in his artwork. But they both are doing really dynamic, exciting stuff that makes you just want to keep flipping the pages, and it just feels like you're looking at a movie. I also want to show you what my copy looks like versus what I'm showing you in the digital there, because the scans I found were somewhat faded pages from the original printing, I think. And I don't know if mine's recolored. It looks like maybe it is. But here's the same page I was just showing you, but the way I was getting to see it. And it's just gorgeous. I wish I had been able to take scans of this myself. Look at the way the colors pop there, the oranges and yellows in that explosion. It's great. And then I want to show you that panel of Batman's cape popping out there. But so yeah, I wish I could have. I don't have a great scanner right now, or I would have tried to do that. But then also, I'm always trepidatious about that because I don't want to mess up the spine. Anyway, I am 10 minutes into this, and I haven't even told you what the story's about. It's relatively simple, but it's a lot of fun, kind of. I keep saying mistaken identity stuff, but I guess what's fun about it is that's turned on its head pretty quickly. I guess you have that between Batman and Green Arrow, but they both end up revealing their identities to the same guy. Like, a lot of what's fun about this issue is stuff I usually complain about it, but I guess I'll give a pass in this case because it makes it entertaining, and I guess it's real self-aware about the coincidences. It's not usually enough to have your characters just go, hey, that's a weird coincidence, to buy a story that's built on a foundation of too many conveniences, because then it just feels really contrived, and it almost feels like more that this is just that mode. Like, it is contrived and it knows it. It's like it's melodrama, which plays by a different set of rules, and so it's easy to give a pass because it knows what it is. And as I always say, the most important thing in critiquing a thing, I think, is to try to see what it just on the page is communicating to you as the point, like why it's there, what are its intentions, what's it trying to achieve, and then is it succeeding at that, and then was that worth doing even in the first place? Those are kind of, the three pillars, and this definitely manages what it's after, even though it's built on a lot of coincidences. I love this kind of. By the way, I can't stop talking about the art. It's so pretty. I really like the lighting work in this particular page, where it's at night and it's almost in black and white, or like a black and blue, where you've got a lot of cool shadow work and silhouettes. Anyway, so the idea here is that Bruce Wayne and Oliver Queen are both dealing with the same bad guy, and he is going to war with them on like two different fronts. And because of that, each of them is wrestling with what to do with their alter ego, because they have to fight this evil, kind of typical corporate tycoon guy. He's called Mr. Minotaur, but he doesn't actually look like a Minotaur. Like, it's not as exciting as it sounds, at least in that case. This is what he looks like. He's just this 75, 80-year-old looking man who wears sunglasses and indoors because I guess he doesn't want anybody to see his expressions, and he's acting all mysterious, and he just wants power. He's kind of that typical villain, and he's trying to gain more power and retain what he has politically, and also in a business way. So on the one hand, there is a crime bill that we're told would stop him from whatever it is he's trying to achieve. And again, Haney is really ambiguous about the details of the politics with this and of the bill. So I don't know exactly what this guy is trying to accomplish that this bill would stop, and I don't know what exactly is in the bill. I'm just supposed to believe that because Batman wants it passed, it's a good thing. It's a little bit like Dark Knight Rises at the beginning, where it's like we've got this anti-crime bill. It put a lot of villains away. That's a good thing. Move on. Okay. And so, I guess it's a little bit more complicated with that material, but you see what I'm talking about. So, On the political end, the Minotaur is trying to stop that from happening, and he's using really underhanded methods. And then you also have Oliver Queen, who is and I should say, Bruce Wayne worked on the bill himself. This is not the kind of Bruce Wayne that is just being a playboy. He is like actively working in the public sector as Bruce Wayne, instead of just fighting on the streets as Batman, and he what's the word I'm looking for? He is a well anyway, he uses his money and his influence to help people. He's a philanthropist. There we go. He's an actual philanthropist. Took me a while. I finally got there. Just like Oliver Queen is. And at the same time, what Oliver Queen is trying to do, and this is kind of funny, if you never read Green Arrow before, you would think that Oliver Queen lives in Gotham. It's kind of strange. He's working on this project to make a second city that's like another Gotham. Like, the city is about to go bankrupt, and I guess he's trying to put a lot of people to work, and that's why we need... I assume it's about unemployment. Again, we don't really have the details of it, because it's a book that reads like it wants to be quote-unquote political, but all that stuff is really just there to facilitate the drama, I guess. And so, you've got both Batman and Green Arrow trying to decide how to marry their alter egos with their regular personas, and they need both of them, but they're really struggling to put those two things together. So Bruce Wayne is friends with a senator that's trying to pass this bill, and it's one of the situations where they aren't sure they're going to get enough votes, and the bad guy, Minotaur, has had the senator shot, and it looks like he's going to die. And so if somebody doesn't take his place that is going to vote the way he votes, this crime bill is never going to pass, and that's bad. Just take it from Batman. This is a good crime bill, and if it doesn't pass, then this Minotaur guy is going to basically take over Gotham somehow. And so Bruce can't decide whether or not he should stop being Batman, because he can't be Batman and also be a senator, and the governor has asked him to take his friend's place and to fill in and become a senator. And he's the only person that's qualified. And again, this is so different from what we're used to very often with Bruce Wayne now, where he's thought of a lot of the time as lazy and as just a kind of playboy gallivanting around town. But this is a lot closer to kind of the 60s version, where Bruce Wayne is a pillar of the community and Batman is a duly deputized agent of the law. And so it's kind of a fun dramatic situation to put Batman in, and he's afraid that if he stops being Batman, of course, crime will run rampant in Gotham, and so he doesn't know how to balance them. And Green Arrow is having the same sort of situation, where he needs to fight on the street and against the against Minotaur and his goons and everything, but he, as Oliver Queen, has to try to get this second Gotham City made. And if he can't manage that, then once again, Minotaur is going to swoop in and take that over and be in control of the second Gotham City. And if both of these things don't work out, you'd have a Minotaur who is basically the kingpin of two Gotham cities. So the political stakes are very, very high here, and it's kind of fun to have a team up like this where both of your heroes come together because they're already both fighting the same villain, but in different ways on different fronts, and that villain has a two-pronged plan, and each of those parts of the plan, like they could each be separate villain plots, but it's two villain plots done by one bad guy, and he's fighting separate heroes on each of those fronts. So it's a really fun idea, and the part where it starts to look kind of contrived, where there's kind of a lot of coincidence, is that both Bruce Wayne and Oliver Queen are confiding in the same guy, and they both, like I said earlier, reveal their secret identity to him, and this is Edmund, who is the son of the senator who was shot, and I guess ultimately killed. It's kind of funny, because when the governor is talking to Bruce Wayne on the phone, he says, at first, it doesn't look like he's going to make it. He's certainly not going to be able to engage in the vote. And so, Bruce, we need you to take over and become the senator. And he, of course, only does that briefly. And by the end of this, we have to reset everything to status quo like we usually do in this period of comics, especially if you're going to do just a one-off story where it's it's not in an ongoing comic where we can, take all the toys out of the box and then put them all back in by the end. You got to do all that within 22 pages here. So at first he says that the senator is alive, but incapacitated, and then he talks about it like he's already dead, which is kind of funny, almost like he's hoping that will happen. Like, for a second I thought maybe the governor was going to be involved in the bad guy, or like in the pocket of Minotaur or something, but like this isn't really about corruption, at least not on a political level. Like, it seems like the government is very much above board, and we just have, an evil corporate tycoon that's also, influencing politics. And that's why I say it does read a little bit anachronistic, because it seems so oddly positive about the political system, while it's a gritty political story about a guy that's gaming the system. So, you'd think that there would be a little bit of cynicism to this, and there isn't. I love this Batplane, by the way. And you also have a helicopter that looks a lot like the Batcopter in the 60s, even though that's not a Batman helicopter. Boy, do I love the art in this. I keep saying that, but it's just so eye-popping. And anyway, so as you might expect, by the time you get to the end of this, Batman and Green Arrow have both figured out how to balance their two their alter egos, and they both come to the same conclusion that each of them needs Bruce Wayne and Batman, or Oliver Queen and Green Arrow. And then when and they maybe take out Minotaur a little bit too easy. There's this, and then toward the end, there's this fun bit where you've got this rising action, you've got this suspense where, oh no, is Bruce Wayne gonna make it there on time? Like, I like that the climax of this isn't Batman punching somebody out, but is Bruce Wayne going to make it to be able to do the vote on time? Then he runs in and he says, "Senator Wayne present, and I vote yes." I always like stories where Bruce Wayne is kind of forced to run for office, like begrudgingly. I don't know why, but I always enjoy that. We did that in the 60s show also. And then at the very end, the last panel is the funniest, where Edmund is using hypnosis, like self-hypnosis, to wipe his mind of Batman and Green Arrow's identities, because of course we can't have him knowing that after this. You gotta put all the toys back in the box. It's a real fun story. I think the art is overall is overall the main reason to take a look at this, and it is a fun escapist story that is weirdly about politics but not politically driven. And when I say that, I don't mean that I want, of course, these kinds of stories uh, to be politically motivated, like they in themselves are propaganda. But it's just weird that this reads like it wants to have some social commentary about the system, but it really doesn't at all. It's kind of odd. But yeah, so that's my review of this one. Thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it. And like I said, I'll try to have another one out for you a little bit later in the day if I can. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and happy reading.